A mitzvah is a connection to God, to the divinity above. In the mitzvah that we fulfill, we are connected to the essence of God, period, in the act itself. And we're absorbed in the light of God in the very act itself. But in order that that mitzvah should not just be in the moment, an absorption in the divine and the essence of God, but it should have more lasting effect, it needs to have kavanah. That act needs to have intent, mindfulness, an awareness of the attachment, that we are being attached through the act of the mitzvah to God, to the divine. And what is it that creates the intent? The intent creates that it stands before God, the mitzvah. It stands before the divine attributes of God. It's united there. Whether in the world of Yetzirah, because you're motivated of a natural love and awe of God, that is the native state of the divine soul, or it's because you've meditated and comprehended the greatness of the mitzvah, the greatness of God, or the greatness of God, and therefore developed a love and awe that's palpable in your heart, and therefore the mitzvah stands before and the divine in the world of Bria, and the soul experiences that ray of light that's emitted from there, which is a ray of light that's emitted as opposed to the essence in the act itself. Now, the inability of an individual in their divine service to be motivated by this love and awe, and therefore it does the mitzvah. There's an essential bond to God in the moment, absolutely, but it doesn't stand above, doesn't ascend above, doesn't stand before God. This is called doing a mitzvah lo lishma, not for its own sake. This is when you do a mitzvah out of rote. Meaning, you've acquired a habit, and that habit is what makes you do the mitzvah. So, perhaps right now, we are habitually here learning Tanya, rather than mindfully. Or we habitually give charity, before prayers, put into a pushkin, to a charity box. Or our prayers are habitual because that's how we were trained. That's how we were raised. Or even if you weren't raised, that's how you learned later on in life, and now that became your habit. So that's not really doing it for its own sake, lishma. You're not doing it to connect to God. You're doing it out of habit. Because to do it for God's sake rather than just our natural, inclination, and thank God that that's the natural inclination, is to do a mitzvah. That's beautiful. And again, in the act itself, you're absorbed in the moment to the divine, to God himself. However, it's missing the light of kavanah, of intent, and therefore the light that the soul experiences. That light has to be because you're motivated to do it lishma, for God's sake, heaven's sake, which means to do it with love and awe. The love and awe that, at least minimally, is already there in us, in our divine soul, because the divine soul has a love and awe of God. The problem is it's hidden, because I have an animal soul and a body that covers over it, and therefore I need to minimally bring it to mind, to think about it, in my mind in the act of doing the mitzvah, whether I feel it or not. But I'm at least mentally aware of the love and awe that my soul has, and that's the motivation to do this mitzvah. Simply said, you won't do something for another person for their sake, for their benefit, unless you love them or you have a sense of awe or fear of them. You don't want to be separated from them. Fear means here fear of separation. Likewise, you can't do something that's an act that's truly for the sake of God unless to carry out, to do what God wants, what he needs from us, unless you arouse the love and awe of God to some degree, at least mindfully, even if it is not fully felt in the heart. In other words, if you observe the mitzvah out of habit, you observe it because, that's what I'm just comfortable doing. So that's not doing it for God's sake. That's doing it for my own sake, my own natural, native, habitual being of person. So that's not doing it for God's sake. God's sake means for him. How do you do for another? When you love them, you'll do for them. Otherwise, whatever you do for another, it's ultimately for your own benefit. But if you love another, or you fear the separation from another, you don't want to be separate from another, that's the love and all, then you can be motivated to do something for their sake. So here, to do the mitzvah with the right intent, which means love and awe. So if we can produce it because we've meditated, we thought about our connection to God, that through this mitzvah, how I'm being connected, or that just the very fact I am being connected. Right now, we're being connected to God through this mitzvah. So the fact that we're mindful of that, and that's the motivation. As opposed to something self-fulfilling, like, makes me feel good, I feel more whole, I feel better, I feel whatever it might be. Right. Then there's it rises above, and it connects to the divine above, that mitzvah. Furthermore, if we do it out of love only, without also the lower level of fear, which the lower level of fear is not fear of punishment, the fear of disconnect, right? So then that's all called serving, because serving is out of servitude. Love is, like a child wanting to do the father's wishes. So when we do it out of love for God, so we do our Father in heaven, God, that we do for his wishes. Right? That's what he wishes. But service is like a servant who does out of mainly fear, meaning not wanting to disconnect. Not fear of punishment. There is that concept, of course, fear of punishment, but that's not what we're talking about here. Fear of disconnect. So it's not a truly serving. Where we conclude now, but in the middle of a thought, we will continue learning the thought of what it means, not doing it for the sake of connection, not doing it for the sake of our connecting to the divine, to God, and what that means in different levels of that. And then we will continue on what it means to rise up, to have a mitzvah connect, to fly with wings. But on that, more to come. More to come. Any questions? Yeah, the habit reduces the value, but right. Very good, Michelle. Thank you for sharing. Okay, before I lose the feed, if you have a question, something to share, 2 question marks beforehand, so I could clearly see. Is forgiveness a mitzvah? Absolutely. I don't know if it's one of the 613 commandments, but it is absolutely something that we need to do. Interesting that you mentioned that, because I just was dealing with that. Leba, thank you, Joseph. What happens if someone who is less observant doesn't do any mitzvah, but do they still have love and awe? So the soul has love and awe of God. Again, the problem, or the human condition is, the way God created things, is that we have a beautiful divine soul, but it's covered up. It's not the first responder in life. The first responder in life is, how's it good for me? That's the animal soul, the natural soul, right? That's the body. So the body translates that, how's that pleasure for me? How's that comfort for me? That's how it translates the body. A higher level might be, how does it make me more fulfilled? It's all self-directed. Now, it doesn't mean you did terrible things. It could be you did wonderful things, right? But it's all self-directed. How do I feel more good about myself? How do I feel even more divine about myself? But it's about how I feel about myself rather than doing it for God. Again, when you love somebody, you will do something for them for their sake. Out of that love, it'll motivate you to do it for their sake, not for your self-benefit. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have a benefit from it. We're talking about what the motivation. Kavanah means intent, means motivation. The motivation is for their sake, for their benefit. That's what we're talking about. I hope that's clear. So everybody has, that love and awe of the divine soul. And as our sages say in the Talmud, speaking about the Jewish people, and the Jewish people having many mitzvahs, 613 commandments, that there isn't a Jew that isn't full of mitzvahs, even an evil, a Russia, someone who's not the best of Jews, that they're not full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate is full of seeds. So yeah, full of mitzvahs. So Michelle, I think feeling some sort of fear to do the right thing than doing it, or just a simple, nice, is trying to be a nice person with understanding. So I'm not clear, Michelle. I'm sorry. I'm not so clear in what you're saying over here. But to do a nice thing, you can do it out of rote, because that's your nature, is to be nice and to be understanding. You're not doing it for the sake of God. That's your nature. And out of rote, you do nice things. Now, we're not taking away from that. We're just making it what it is. It is, if it's your nature that compels you to do it, then it's very self-directed. If it's because that's what God needs from you and that's what compels you to do it, or that's what motivates you to do it, then that's for the sake of God, and that's called the love and awe. Again, there's self-love and there's a love of another. Self-love will lead me to engage with you how it benefits me and what's good for me. Love of you will motivate me to do what benefits you and what's good for you. That's what love. That's right. So that's what we're talking about over here. Michelle. It means more than I want to. Okay. All right. Thank you, Michelle. Anybody else with a question, comment? Okay, beautiful. Reminder, we have Rambam coming up now on Zoom, 770-770. 6085, or on Facebook, it's on Chabad ZK. We have tonight at 6:30 Passover prep. Please come and join us. Also on the same stations. And then 8 o'clock will be TRC, Tanya Rabbi Community. Go to TanyaRabbi.com for more information about that. And don't forget, folks, today is Yud Aleph Nisan, is the Rebbe's birthday. I suggest everybody to write into the Ohel, Rabbi at ohelchabad.org. REBBE at Ohel, OHEL, Chabad.org. And then you have Tanya Rabbi. You also have on YouTube, if you want, of all of my classes, you have there, Tanya Rabbi on YouTube. So do come. Don't forget, so write into the Rebbe for blessings and give a gift of adding something in your life of a mitzvah. Specifically the mitzvah of Torah learning, to add and increase, but it could be any mitzvah, something specific. Furthermore, Pesach is coming. Jewish people need to sell their chametz, and so make sure you do that. Go online, wherever you live. You can go through Chabad.org. You can get your region and your time zone to sell the chametz. If you're in my time zone, you can do it to me, through me. And don't forget to get your shmura matzah for the holiday and everything else that's needed to celebrate, to get ready for the time of our freedom. Chag HaMatzah is the holiday matzah, Passover holiday. All right, and again, a good Yom Tov to everybody on Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe's birthday. Thank you for joining. Have an amazing week and an amazing preparation for the holidays. All good things. Bye-bye. Rambam coming up.